But just in case, we might as well keep it for 8 hours. People are so afraid when they're ignorant. So, you can take it as fact. That, if you want to find out as fact, you remember when you died. And you have many, many times. And you'll find as soon as the death happens, you leave your body. If you really want to check this out, look at the article which was in Lancet, December 2001, I think it was. Lancet, the Journal of the British Medical Association, December 2001. I'm pretty sure it's that issue. Now, any of you who are in the medical profession know the Lancet is the oldest medical journal. It's got a great reputation. This is not some flaky new age sort of journal. To get an article, a research paper in the Lancet, you have to be at the top of your job. This particular article was, the main author was Professor Pim van Lommel, Lommel, I think it is, from one of the teaching hospitals in the Netherlands. It was about people who have near-death experience in cardiac arrest. It was the piece of evidence, as the research, he'd known many people reporting near-death experiences. In other words, floating out of your body, being able to see everything which was going on, hear what's going on. And he wanted to find out when this happens. So his research was, when does this happen? It's very easy to find out this was actually happening by asking the nurses, getting interviews and stuff like that. This was true, it happened. But you want to know when it happens. At what stage of the body dying does the stream of consciousness leave the body? What he found was not after 8 hours. What he found is as soon as this cardiac arrest and brain death, as soon as the EEG and the ECG are flat, and all those instruments are on those people being treated for cardiac arrest, as soon as that happens, then they leave the body. If there's still some brain activity, there's no near-death experience. It's a great piece of research. Not only did it show that you leave your body at the time when you have brain death, even though it's not true brain death, because if the brain is not active, then they can turn it on again within a few minutes or whatever, and there's no brain damage. But the brain is inactive. As soon as the brain is inactive, then you leave the body. But also, it showed that the brain was inactive. All the gizmos were on that brain. There was no activity discernible at all. Consciousness was still active. He actually said, it was one of the statements in his conclusion, that this proved that conscious activity survived clinical death. So anybody who continues to maintain that the mind is part of a brain, you can only have conscious activity when you have a functioning brain, should read that article. Professor Pim van Lommel has actually disproved it. He showed many cases of people who had literally the brain has been dead. The gizmos have been on that and shown there's no activity at all in any part of the brain. But conscious activity has occurred outside of the brain. Great piece of research. Yeah. So you don't have to wait till 8 hours. Straight away, donate your organs. Yeah. Deep meditation when you're dead. Sorry. Okay. I'm mentioning this because some yogis here were asking, what should I tell my husband or my wife? Because I might get into deep meditation now. And my wife might go into my room and think, oh, he's dead. Let's take his organs. And I'm not dead. I'm just in meditation. So the difference, which I mentioned last night, if you're in deep meditation, you're still warm. You're still heat in your body. All the other life indicators are gone. And this is only in very deep meditation. Again, I only know, a couple of people have done this. But only one person who actually got taken to hospital. So that's the difference. Tell your husband or your wife, and all you medics here, all you doctors, it should be in the doctor's journals. If somebody, a meditator, is taken to hospital because they look like they're dead, feel their body, make sure it's warm. If it's not warm, then straight down the morgue. Fine. Yep. Okay, you said by a meditation teacher, if you don't have good parameters or the spiritual qualities, you won't get nirvana, you can't get into deep meditation. Yes, that is true. But it is also true that each one of you have got good parameters. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in Chandako Buddhist Lodge listening to this talk, would you? Or you wouldn't have been born in a human body in a time when the Dhamma of the Buddha is still so wonderful, when you can hear the greatest, deepest teachings of the Buddha. You have got good parameters. So, the doors of enlightenment are open to you. Do you want to walk in? Yeah, go on. Okay, that's a good question. If you go into jhanas, there's actually two parts to that question. Do you have to go into all the 4 jhanas to become enlightened? Or is the first jhana sufficient? The second part of the question is, if you get into jhanas, will you always become enlightened or not? I thought that was the second part of the question. Not sure if that was your question, but I'm going to add it because it's an important thing to say. The first part of the question, even first jhana, is sufficient for enlightenment. That's what the suttas say. In that simile I gave yesterday of the 1,000-petal lotus, by the time you get into that deep layer of the lotus, the other lotus petals, as it were, are so thin you can see right in through them to the jewel in the heart, to the emptiness. There's enough disappeared in first jhana, you can infer the rest. So sometimes people can get enlightened just with the first jhana. Obviously, if you have the second jhana, it's more likely, more easy. The third jhana is even easier. The fourth, obviously, is the easiest. The deeper, the better. But it is possible for the first jhana to become fully enlightened. Obviously, afterwards, the other jhanas become just so easy. There's nothing between you and the jhana for an enlightened one. There's no obstacles anymore, no attachments, no barriers, no nivaranas, no hindrances. It's easy. The other part of the question is more fascinating. If you've got those jhanas, will you always become enlightened? The answer obviously is no. But you are close enough. You're in the presence of nibbana. All you need is a little bit of wisdom. A way of looking back at those things and making sense of what they mean. And that's the teaching of the Buddha. If you have a little bit of understanding of what the Buddha taught, and you have the experience of those jhanas, you'll add those 2 and 2 together, you get 4. So it's important to have the teachings of the Buddha plus the experience, and then you have the enlightenment happen. It's as if the jhanas are like the flame, as if the teachings of the Buddha are like the gunpowder. When they come together, there's a bang. And what's destroyed is your delusion. But that will come on Saturday night, the end of the journey, enlightenment coming soon in a temple near you. Yeah. Any other questions on seeing things? Yes, please. The microphone is there. It's waiting for you.
Ajahn Brahm, I want to ask whether the path for enlightenment and the path for the Bodhisattva or Buddha to be is the same. And the second part of the question is that if you choose the one of the path, that means you have to forget the other one.
Okay, you're asking about the Bodhisattva path and the path to enlightenment. Now, I'm not going to answer according to the books. I'm going to answer from experience here. So what actually happens? You might think you're walking a different path, but you're actually walking the same path. Both lead to the same goal. There's only one tip of the mountain, not two. What actually happens? It's like, for example, you may be, what's a good example? You may be walking, say, we're in page A now. You may be walking west because you want to go to Paris. You may be walking west because you want to go to London. Doesn't matter what your destination is, you'll still reach Malacca. Is my geography right? Is that west of here? Well, roughly, you know what I'm talking about anyway. The point is that what you do as a bodhisattva, you may think that, this is my destination, but what is the path you tread? It's the 6 parameters of the bodhisattva, which is dana, sila, kanti, virya, samadhi, panya. That's what the practice, that's what you do on the bodhisattva path. You give generosity. I'm going to just change them. Dana, kanti, virya. That's generosity, perseverance or endurance and energy. And the other 3 are sila, samadhi, panya. Virtue, meditation and wisdom. That's the bodhisattva path. What is the path of the arahat? Sila, samadhi, panya. Virtue, jhanas and wisdom. So you may think you're doing something different. When you get to the nitty-gritty of actually what you do, you're doing exactly the same. Because both have sila, samadhi, panya. Both lead to full enlightenment. And I quote from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, where the last ordained disciple of the Buddha, there's something called Subhadda, before this was in Kusinara, the Buddha was about to enter Parinibbana. This wanderer wanted to see the Buddha to ask his questions, just like you, one last question. And Ananda said, look, the Buddha's tired, he's about to die, leave him alone. The Buddha heard and said, let him come, Ananda, let him come, Ananda. So the Buddha, even though he was on his deathbed, spoke to Subhadda. And one of the questions this wanderer said is a great question and a brilliant answer. He said, are there any arahats in other religions? It's a great question, isn't it? Are there any arahats, dream winners in Christianity, in Islam, in Hinduism or whatever? And the Buddha's answer was just so brilliant. He said, look, in whatever practice, path, religion, whatever you call it, wherever you find the Eightfold Path practiced, there you will find stream winners, once returners, non-returners, arahats. It does not matter what you call it. What matters is what you do. Your practice. If you practice in this way, it leads to that destination. If you practice the Eightfold Path, it has to lead in that direction. And the Eightfold Path, otherwise known as Sila, Samadhi, Panya. So the Buddha said, if you're practicing Sila, Samadhi, Panya, if you think you're a bodhisattva or an arahat, it all leads to the same place. Streaming, once returning, non-returning arahat. And after you're an arahat, you don't just disappear. You teach for the happiness and well-being of others. You serve. You're not just doing this for yourself. If there's a self there, well, I want to become enlightened, you never get to enlightenment. You've all heard me say, if you want to get jhana, it becomes impossible. Whether it's a Theravada path or a Mahayana path, Bodhisattva or Arahat, it's all about letting go of the self. There can be no I in the successful practitioner. So really there's no difference between the Bodhisattva path and the Arahat path. I know other monks might argue with me, but they're the scholar monks. The practice monks will say, yeah, I understand, that's true. And isn't it wonderful it's true? We don't have to have all these big divisions. Mahayana, Theravada. I've started the new yana. It's called the Hahayana. Because I crack jokes. So I practice a Hahayana. Ha 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 ha. That's a Hahayana. Oh, I'm very naughty. Sorry about that. Yes, come on.
Whenever, actually, I would like to ask is, what convinced you there's a rebirth?
What convinced me rebirth?
And
Knowledge.
in addition to that, have you ever experienced a past life?
Have I experienced a past lives?
Because you practice in Buddhism for so
Yeah,
many
I
years.
have. Well, okay. Now here I've got to be careful because anyone wants to check this out. That's one of the rules I cannot actually say specifically. Because you can look that up. It's the 8th rule in the Pajitya section. A monk cannot go announcing his psychic powers, and that's one of them. But all I can say, I know many monks who have remembered their past lives. So I can say that. Okay. Next question. Any more questions? Yes, come on.
Ajahn, if a person attains jhana, would he reborn as a human being again?
Okay, if a person attains a jhana, are they going to be reborn as a human being again? Not necessarily, because one of the figures in the time of the Buddha who got into a jhana was Devadatta. And he had psychic powers as a result. But he didn't use it in the right way. The psychic powers just led to more pride. And because of that, he started doing terrible things to the Buddha, and that led to his going down to a hell realm. But obviously such spiritual power, it's only going to be down there for a while, and he's going to come back again. And the Buddha said I think he's going to be a appichato Buddha later on. So, he made a mistake there. Eventually it's going to work, you're going to get a good rebirth. That's the exception though. Most people, if they're going to get a jhana, you have to have great virtue. First of all, you're a pure-hearted being, and that's going to make you more pure-hearted. And if you have a little bit of good teaching, and you're not so proud that you don't listen to it, that it's going to happen that those jhanas and those wisdom are going to come together, and that's going to free you. If you're a streamer, obviously you have to get either heavenly birth or a rebirth as a human being. So you're increasing your chances enormously for a human rebirth. And you get a human rebirth, you'll be such a spiritual person, because you've got such a pure and powerful mind. You just really can't stay too long in the lower realms. You just don't fit down there. Either the higher heaven realms or the human realm. And if you're a human realm, you're not so interested in sort of sex and material things, because something deep inside you remembers a pleasure long ago, which surpasses all of that. You'll be an unworldly human being. And because you've had a taste of that, something inside of you remembers subconsciously, and you'll incline towards simple things, peace and seclusion. It leaves such a powerful imprint in the mind. You know that sometimes people remember their past lives, and sometimes because of some terrible act they did, they have to keep reliving that act again and again. If you've done such a beautiful act like getting into a jhana, do you think that's going to just be ignored? That's going to become prominent in many, many lives, leading you closer to Nibbana. Thank you. Now that's how a baby says sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Because obviously it remembered something a long time ago. Any other question? Yeah. The manner you die, does it affect the process of your rebirth? And what you mean, like an accident or? Gotcha. It really depends on how you've been practicing. If you have an accident or a gunshot or something, will that really affect your rebirth? One of my disciples, she was very proud of herself because she had a car accident. A car rolled over as she was leaving our monastery. About 3 times it went over. Of course, when that happens to you, you don't know what the damage is. So she thought she's going to die. And immediately, when the car stopped rolling, she was saying to herself, let go, let go, let go, let go. As it was, when she checked herself, there was no damage to her body, just a few bruises. The car was a write-off, but she was safe. But she was so happy, she said, I had a rehearsal and I passed the test. So even if it was an accident, if you have been a practitioner like that, when you have a gunshot wound, it'll be let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. And then you'll have a really wonderful death. It's how you've been practicing all these years. That will come up at the time of your death. I've been practicing this a long time. Yes, go on. Last question. Make this the last question. We're getting late. Yeah. Yeah. Who's daughter? You say you catch a grasshopper and you feed it to a bird. What happens to your karma? What's probably going to happen is you're going to probably be caught by a tiger who's going to feed it to her cubs. Okay. So I think that's enough for tonight. So thank you for coming. Let's do the sharing of merits. So, okay. Idam enyatinang hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Idam enyatinang hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Idam enyatinang hotu sukhita hontu yatayo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. There's only 2 talks to go at night time. Friday, no one at home, anatta, and I promise I'll be sitting here to give that talk. It will not be given by Venerable Anatta. And on Saturday, the end of the journey, enlightenment coming on Saturday. So see you then. Take care. Good night.